You may have graduated school a long time ago, but I bet you didn't realize that your garden was going to teach you lessons. Well, ours sure did, and we're here to talk about it right here on the Backyard Gardens podcast.
To have a good harvest, one must plant good seeds and must also use the right kind of fertilizer. The carrots have grown large and firm. How good they will taste.
Welcome to the Backyard Gardens podcast, where we talk about all things gardening and give the information out for you to be successful in your garden, whether it's your first or your last. We are your hosts, Ben, the backyard gardener, and
Batavia, the front yard gardener.
one in the country,
One in the city.
Now get ready as we dig deep into this wonderful world of gardening as we learn to grow and grow for change. I did it on the first try.
Actually, I'm really proud. I was waiting for you to stumble on the name of the podcast.
Yeah, I got somebody made fun of me. They were watching some of the YouTube videos, and he was like, "You always stutter in the very beginning." And I was like, I guess that's just my thing now. I don't know. I always stumble, so.
Yeah.
What's going on, Batavia? What are you up to?
Oh, nothing much. Enjoying the frigid temperature. Layering up. Frigid. Mm-hmm.
What's the temperature?
It's actually going to get to a balmy 70, but right now it's something like, wind gust of 30, 40 miles an hour, 66, overcast. And that kind of feels like 40 degrees,
Yeah, that's painful.
I mean, I'm also at the time of the season where I kind of get a little whiny,
Yeah.
So
I've recognized that.
So the proper response to not, encourage the whining would have been.
I shouldn't agree, should I?
It would have been, really? No.
Well, after as many conversations and hours that we've spent talking to each other, and everybody listening, you should know that I'm not one for the proper way to come across sometimes.
This is true. And we are actually rounding out because we were doing this like in the winter months and kind of at the end of winter too, when I'm the whiniest. As many people are. I'm gonna pull everybody in the boat with me. But this is a tough time too because, one day it's like, oh, okay, I'll wear some sandals. The next day it's like, oh, the 2 jackets really still aren't enough, because once the chill gets in me, man, it's a day and a half later before I can shake it,
So I know a lady, an ex-girlfriend's stepmother, to be exact, from many, many, many years ago. She used to live in Chicago. And, being from North Carolina, I have traveled all over, and I even lived in New York for a while at this time, but I didn't know about like northern state climates. And then she was telling me that like she would come home from work and like you just could not get the chill off. It was so cold. And I didn't believe it. And then I moved to New England and I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Like sometimes you just can't get rid of that chill.
Yeah. Once it gets in your bones.
I have sympathy for you because it is already 78 degrees here.
Oh, good night. And so wait, is that 78 degrees for like 45 minutes or is that 78 degrees for most of the day?
Most of the day. Yeah, now we're at most of the day.
I think this comes out just after the time changes, but the time hasn't changed yet. We haven't we haven't fallen back, set the clocks back yet. So we get, I think that next week after that happens, we get a little bit more daylight. But now, as of this recording, the sun rises at about 7 o'clock, like almost 7 on the head, and sets just after 6. So quick math, and you'll never get quick math out of me like this. What's that, 11 hours? And that's kind of smack dab into, maybe there's a little bit of time before my work day. Maybe there's a little bit of time after my work day. And don't you laugh at my work day, because I do have a true work day. But yeah, man, it's getting tough. And I have this thing mentally, once the weather starts getting colder, I don't like to be out, in the streets running errands once dark hits. There's nothing that's really any more dangerous, but in my mind, it's like, get inside the house, girl,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah, sure.
even though the time falls back, we don't get any more sunlight. The Earth still revolves the same way at the same rate around the sun. It's just waking hours for society that makes you perceive that you get more sunlight.
You know, yeah. Yeah. Early, you know, you're one, you know, I'm not even going to call you one of those people.
What people? What people?
So,
I want to know.
Well, you know, it's, I've kind of been thinking that maybe I have them in my life, and maybe that's like, you know, this is what I reach out and the people that I draw to me, like, just can't let go of a thing. Like the absolute need. My dear cousin, he's in Florida with his family, and my mom always says, "Oh, did you talk to your cousin?" And I'll say, you know, at some point I'll say yes, and it's really like the amount of times we actually speak is so rare, but we text like from sun up to sundown, right? And he is one of those people that, you know, the amount of clarification in text that I get, and it's like, and I totally see it. Like if I observe a conversation, like if we're in person with him and his wife, I'm like, damn, I thought I had it bad, but of course she has it worse, you know?
So you apparently like to have people like us around, even though you slightly despise us quietly.
I think there's some intrigue. Yeah. So yeah, yes. I think I like to have you all around, although I silently, secretly, sometimes openly despise you all.
Yeah, we our minds don't work quite like some people, so
yeah, and it's kind of fun because I'm a talker. I like to debate things, and so there's like almost never an end with you guys, right? Until it's like, you know, the beep on the text just woke me up. I was just nodding off, like. I don't care about, you know, multiple shades of blue and there really only being one colored blue, and, you know, the Americas have decided that there should be, like, I don't care about that shit, you know?
You just gotta,
blue is the only real blue, and yeah, nah. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm difficult, but that's okay.
All right.
Imagine how my wife feels. So, a big announcement on the personal note. Last weekend, as you probably are aware of, we went backpacking with my son. Mm-hmm. He hiked 10 miles on Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
And he's 6 years old. I could not believe it. It made me a proud man.
To be that cute and like ready for the apocalypse. Because that's key, you know.
Yeah. We hiked for 13 hours. It took us forever to do it, but you know, we stopped a lot and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But he kept falling. Wow. So when you I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you ever do like long trail distances, a lot of times you will adopt a trail name. No,
don't know.
So yeah, you will adopt a trail name. You'll kind of, when you hit the trail, you leave your name behind and you get this new one. So he has been dubbed Roly Poly because he just followed down the mountain. He fell 9 times. Oh and it got to the point where he would like fall and he'd be like, "I did it again, Daddy." He would just get right up and keep going.
Is it Daddy? I did it again, Daddy.
Yeah, because he says Daddy to get my attention. Then he tells me, and then he has to close the statement with my name. So, but yeah, he's it was amazing. So. And my dog, who is 8 years old, we were worried about her because, you know, you start to slow down.
Mm-hmm,
nope.
Mm-hmm. Just full force, yeah.
She went the whole time, and then the next day we were like, all right, we're going to leave now. And I expected her to be slow. Mm-hmm. And we were hiking down the trail, and I was like, where the hell's the dog at? And she's over here in the creek up
She's
to her
a big
neck.
dog, too, right?
She's 40 pounds. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and she carries her own backpack. She has all her own stuff she carries. So she carries water, food, bowl, and she carries our trash. Mm-hmm, so her name is Trash Man. So
someone has to do it. It's a dirty job.
It is a very dirty job.
I mean, come on.
I used that in a video that I haven't released yet, and when I said it, I was like, "Damn, that's terrible."
Yeah. I'm sure it's just as bad now. Do you hear the wild, wild west that's outside of my window?
I do.
That is craziness. It's and I don't like I don't use Chi-Town. I'm not offended when people use it, but that's not something that most people that live in the city say. I don't really, talk about the Windy City other than to kind of, make a reference to people that don't live here. But good night. Talk about earning its name. I've already gotten like 3 or 4 weather alerts, about these high winds. Good night.
Do you need to go sit in the bathtub and record?
I think I'm going to be okay. I think I probably need to check on all of my jars that I've been canning. I want to make sure they aren't rattling around.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I've closed out my green beans for the year. I did my last 2 cans last night. So, but anyways, let's get to it. But before we get to it, we need to answer the question of the day.
All right.
Because we forgot last week.
We forgot?
Okay.
Yeah, we forgot. Yeah. Because
Yeah.
I think it was my job to remind you, and I was going to skip right over it again. This is my favorite part of the show. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So I don't have it. It was a video that was sent to me, and Instagram, I guess you can watch the video once.
For some period of time or something. Mm-hmm.
Something like that. I don't know, but it was sent to us. But it's from Ashley.
Oh, okay. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, Ashley. We love you. So she asked, what should I put in my garden to help feed the soil while I'm not planting or as I get ready to plant something else?
That's a really good question. So I would totally get...
So hold on. Now, if you haven't listened to the episode with Ashley, check it out. Because this young lady has made leaps and bounds in her gardening. And this shows that she is thinking things through, and I'm impressed by that. So
yeah, and she's fighting her way, which is actually a real connection to this particular episode. When you talk about lessons learned, I've seen some of her recent harvest, and I haven't cried in a good long episode. Like it's been a while, but those kinds of things, the way, because I'm one of those people. Ariana Huff, I follow her on Instagram, non-gardening related, but she really has this thing about, quiet space and, the importance of rest. And there are a lot of people that recommend things like don't put your phone next to your bed or even don't keep it in your room. And it sounds good, but I don't live that way. So one of the things I do earlier in the morning to help me decide if I'm going to get out of bed or not is I'll go online on social media. So sometimes over this last 3 or 4 days, I've checked, or that's actually a lie. It's not when I'm getting out of bed. It's when I'm deciding if I'm going to wake up for my evening nap. So it's like 9 or 10 p.m. So I pick up the phone like, do I want to sleep a little while longer or not? So anyway, if I check, and I've seen some of her harvest is like one of the first things that I see when I wake up. And you talk about like, a proud garden mama over here, the biggest smile ever. Yeah.
She's killing it, man. She's doing it. So
way to go.
What is your recommendation?
So I would have to ask her like how much time in between, but generally since, we're going to go general.
She was literally going to replant something right away. Like she had cleared out her bed, if I had interpreted it correctly, and then she was going to replant right away.
And she wants to add something to the bed in between or in preparation of the next thing she's gonna plant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with compost.
Okay. What kind of compost? Like
final answer.
See, I told her to put a little bit of compost and then shredded leaves on top because we're getting close to fall. Yeah. And so, if she puts, and my whole thought process, and I don't know about where she is because they don't really have a winter like we do. Yeah. So I don't know, to be completely honest, I don't even know what the trees are like out there, if they'd be dropping leaves or not. But, when you put your leaves down in the fall, they have that whole winter to kind of break down and add to the soil a little bit and fuel the microbial life that's living inside of your soil.
But you're saying
So-
that there's going to be a pretty short gap between when she's planting.
Right, but you use it as a mulch. You know what I mean? Like you can use shredded leaves as a mulch. So
Yeah, I'm trying to look to see, and I hate to be the asshole, and I'm not making light of this at all, but I literally got yesterday alerts. AccuWeather is, I have like 8 different weather apps. I'm a gardener, right? You know, so AccuWeather is one of the apps that gives me alerts about random things. And I got a couple of alerts yesterday around kind of, the potential for fires, right? So the winds were so high between yesterday and today that where I am, where they're just kind of warning things like, be careful if you're out, on the grill, right? Wind gusts are so high. And so leaves, obviously, depending on how many you have, where your area is, could potentially be an issue just based on whatever else you're doing. I use them for mulch over the winter over the last couple of years, and I've really liked it. I did it, though, just the year before, just before a really good snow. And that worked really well. I did it earlier last year. It didn't work so well because, again, where I am, the leaves weren't shredded. We talked about this before. They were whole, and they, a lot of them blew away. But anywho, so yeah, I think that's leaves are it's a good thing to add. I think her question is really rich. Get it? Nutrients rich, because
you're so corny.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Batavia. It's good to meet you.
I must have been sleeping for the last 55 episodes.
Yeah, right. So, but because it's so dry, it's so warm, it's so dry there, it's such a great question because you want to make sure that you're just not leaving that soil bare, letting it continue to dry out, which is going to create a challenge. It's not a challenge you can't overcome, but a challenge all the same, kind of when she gets back to planting. So,
yeah. I mean, really, like when I replant something, I generally don't, like right now, because it's fall and I'm replanting. I don't, and I should, but I don't have the leaves available to me now. But as they come available, then I start adding them in and stuff like that. So, but that was a great question, and I mean, the things you can add are hay, which I guess is technically straw, but I call it hay. One of them has seeds, one of them doesn't. I don't remember.
I want to say, I think they're different, kind of, sort of.
They look
I think
the
way
same,
they're
but
processed is different,
But
anyway,
one of those
that's,
leaves.
you know what? In that moment, I'm being you and my cousin. I think that, technically if they're processed for 17 days, then it's actually hay. Like, you see how annoying that is?
Well, no, it doesn't bother me at all, actually. So when I go, though, and I'm like, I need to get, I'm pretty sure it's hay. I'm like, I need to get a bale of hay. She's like, what are you doing with it? I'm like, I'm going to put it in my garden. She's like, you want straw. And I'm like, whatever. Just give me what I need.
That's it. That's the thing I'm talking about. Yeah.
But in their defense, they are trying to sell me the correct product.
Yeah.
But, wood chips, which we've talked about endlessly on here, shredded leaves, compost. You could use pine needles, any of that stuff. I wouldn't really recommend pine needles because it'd raise the acidity in your garden unless you need it. But.
Yeah. So just for record's sake, the interweb has this blurb: hay is a crop that is grown and harvested as a feed crop for cattle, horses, and other farm animals. Straw, on the other hand, is a byproduct of a grain crop. In our area, this is actually closer to me in the Midwest. In our area, it's usually used, they use wheat straw. That's what we normally see.
Wheat straw, yes.
Yeah. I actually ordered it, which wasn't worth the dollar spent, but ordered it for my strawberries. I ordered straw. Yeah, I know. I
used it as mulch for my strawberries this year, too.
Yeah, I think it, in the last year, I used straw as a small garden experiment because I love them.
Wait. Are you giving us a lesson learned?
No, I'm not. Well, from 2019, but we're not. That's not what this episode is. So I'm not counting this one though. So I used an experiment of wood chip mulch in one bed and straw in the other bed out in the front yard garden. Remember it was the first year for it last year, and maybe I just didn't do a thick enough layer because I'm always trying to conserve things and save things, but the straw just didn't do what I was expecting, like especially once it got wet a few different times, and then so I pulled it up. Another version of that same straw was used in the backyard garden and the strawberry bed, and the whole process of like going through the winter snow, thawing, snow melting, snow. It just made a mess of things. Like there was no like thickness or fluffiness left in the straw. It was like everything was kind of just matted down.
Yeah, it gets like that.
Yeah, I'll use what I have, but I won't buy it again.
Well, that's kind
not
of
for
what
this
it's
area
for.
in this
That's what
particular
it's
garden.
meant for, though, because as it gets matted down, it blocks the light out. So, but it gets. I'm with you. It gets kind of gross.
Yeah, it wasn't that. I was just gonna say, it wasn't that aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
I love a pretty garden.
Well, and that's. But you know what? That's part of it too. Which brings me into my lessons learned.
Okay, let's go.
Transition.
I know. Gosh, what are we like an hour and a half in already? Or can we get
4
this
hours.
on already?
Yeah, everybody's sleeping. They're like, just get to the point. But no, so I've been revamping the YouTube channel and trying to put out content, and as I've been going through, I've noticed that in my transition from summer to fall, my garden went to shit. It's just a mess. So, that's kind of one of my lessons learned is stay on top of it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't compound and be such an issue.
Yeah.
Because as I'm walking through and I'm like, all right, we're going to work on this garden, blah, 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 blah. And I go through and I'm like, damn, this plant's like half dead. This one's all chewed up. I've got like scraps laying down here and all this stuff. So that was my first lesson learned, was just to kind of stay on top of it, because it's like you said, like it's not really bothering the garden, but it's just not aesthetically pleasing. And I find that I don't really want to be out in the garden as much.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And especially like at the end of the year where you really should be enjoying all you can of your garden. So.
And is that, you had a spring garden this year too, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to ask. So, I'm not here to say be kind to yourself. Not about this anyway. But, kind of going from spring to summer and then kind of having that transition period to fall. It's a lot to take on,
It is. So. And I think I was talking to you about it the other day, not on the podcast, and I was saying that I think fall gardening is actually harder than spring gardening, because when you start in the spring, if you've done things kind of like we talk about, where it's like you take a day in the winter, a couple days in the winter, by the time spring comes, I mean, you got a completely clean slate. You might have to do a little bit of weeding, but in the fall, it's like you've got your summer, you've got your harvest going on, you've got your watering, you've got, what plant am I going to leave up? What plant am I going to take down? How am I going to get this in? You've got so much stuff going on, and it's very time sensitive. Yeah. Especially for me, it's time sensitive in my area.
So if I feel like I need a garden notebook just for the podcast.
Damn it, I've been saying this for a year now.
Well, let me tell you why. Because I am almost sure that there is an episode of these 55 where I say something like a fall garden is harder than a spring garden, even though I've never had a spring garden. And you said something like, no, I don't think so.
I think it depends on how I agree with you, but I think it depends on I think you're referencing to the fact that, yes, it's harder for growing, but I'm not referring to growing. I'm referring to managing the whole situation.
Okay.
Look at you. Don't you even start that.
All right. I mean, you have to warm up to this. I get it. Another 10 or 12 episodes, you'll realize. All right. Okay. I got you.
Another 10, 12 episodes, I'll be sitting here in my jammies trying to stay warm, not worried about it.
Yeah,
so.
right. Here's a fun Batavia fact. Even though I've lived in Chicago all of my life and I've traveled to various places and I'm always happier in a warmer climate, I will start now staying in my car a little while longer because it's warmer. I have the heat on. The walk from the car to the house is like the chilliest, right? But I do not put socks on until the absolute last minute. Like, even if it's snow and I have on winter boots, I will be barefoot in those boots. So socks, for whatever reason, really define like this cold weather is here and here to stay. So I'm sitting here with long pants on, a t-shirt and a jacket in my home, but I'm barefoot. My grandmother, God rest her soul, she would not be proud. She
wouldn't be?
No, she's definitely a socks and a footy kind of gal. So
that's how I am with long pants. I don't wear those until the last possible minute.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to meet your, kind of that transition from the fall and staying organized, but it's actually not in the garden. It is really identifying a workspace, right? So kind of a part of this whole urban gardening, a kind of a part of this small garden areas, it's a challenge, right? So clearly I'm growing in a lot of places. Every place there's dirt, I'm growing in it. But it doesn't leave a lot of room to do other things like, build this thing out. I'm building it right in the middle of the garden. I don't have a shed. I have a garage, which is really helpful. But right now my car is in front of the house because my garage is like a storm has hit it. So
yeah, because you're building an indoor greenhouse right now. So
well, what ends up happening is I start storing things, and then I end up having a couple of projects that come up, and it's just the empty space. So my garage inside is not finished, which is it's been fine. It's been that way for as long as I've lived here, and at the same time, though, there's so little like ways to organize, so everything is just stacked. Like the only thing that makes sense to stack is the dirt that I buy, the bad compost. But everything else, it's really hard to kind of have it organized when it's just laying on the side of a wall or on the garage floor. So it's made it a little bit of a challenge. It's not a huge thing, but it's made a little bit of a challenge to keep that area organized, just because I haven't really defined a workspace in that area or otherwise. So
I can't believe you just brought this up.
Why can't you believe it?
Because it's just been on top of my mind lately.
Mm-hmm. For me?
No.
Oh,
for me.
Okay. All right. Do tell.
Well, the other day I was, first of all, I didn't give my greenhouse temperature update. It was 85 degrees outside, is 112 inside the greenhouse. And so as we come up on fall, you want to start planting stuff, but 112, you can't plant stuff, really anything. So I had some stuff that I had set in there in pots, and I was like, I'm going to leave them in here, and just when it's time, I'll put them in. So I decided after like a day or two of the temperature jumping up like that, I was like, I got to pull these things out of here. So I was repotting back there. Now remember, beforehand, it was just 4 garden beds and a compost pile. Now there's 4 garden beds, a greenhouse, and a compost pile. And I was sitting back there, and I kind of had I have this like big giant plastic pot, and I was using it as a table, and I was repotting, and I was just like, this is like the gardening space now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like this is where, like, usually I'll take stuff and this is stupid of me, but I would like hump a bag of dirt up to the back porch, and I'd sit on there. But now it's like I'm sitting back there, and it's like I have this actual space to sit back there that I've designated. And I was like, this is kind of nice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I didn't even realize it, but it just like hit me like this overwhelming like joy of like, I'm comfortable here doing this. This is my space. Don't worry about it. It was nice to do that. So
Yeah, and I thought about this last year when it came to like creating like a potting table even in the garage. And the ideas that I have now are a little bit different, but you know, when everything changed this spring, you know, with the virus and all, I decided to kind of limit kind of the work I was going to have done around here. But I definitely felt the need for it, right? You know, so everything that I've been doing when it comes to potting and all of that stuff and just work in general is either done in between beds on my back porch. And, you know, I'm not quick by any means. So this could be spanning over a couple of days, and it just creates just that, you know, it's always under construction.
Yeah.
You know, so I, as an
well, and you kind of go ahead.
I was just going to say, as an example, I didn't get a chance to have as many kickback, you know, and relax and, you know, admire my garden from my back porch seating area. I have a whole seating area back there, you know, but I'm literally like, even right now, stepping over pots, you know. So
that's how I am. And so one thing I want to say is Batavia and I interrupt each other so much when we talk that now when we talk on the phone, Batavia will say something, but then she'll say, "No, let me finish." So that even though I have like no intention of cutting her off, but it's kind of like our thing.
Well, because you know what? Because I also know that I'm long-winded, so I know that I'll be like 4 minutes in, and you're thinking like this has to be the end, right? And like I'm trying to let you know, nope, it's gonna be more.
You know, I have a whole notebook for when we talk, so I can write down my questions or my thoughts to bring up after you finish talking.
We're gonna need one of like the game boards where you have, or the you know, board games where you have like the little timer, like flip it over, like, all right, is there a 7-minute timer? Does anyone know? Because like the sand.
Yeah, that's what we need, an hourglass.
Yeah.
But you know, and I'm the same way as you. So this goes back to the first one where everything was a mess, because I have a bad habit. I will go and I will do any project you want. But when I'm done and the project is done, I walk away and everything's still out. I
remember you saying this on an episode, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you take that and you say, okay, I've taken all of this, you know, this big bag of soil, all these pots and these plants up to my porch, and then I work on them, and then I'm done. I'm just going to walk right inside. Yeah. But then I've got to bring them all the way back. But now that I'm sitting out there where I already store it, I might not put it up right away, but at least it's consolidated, so it's that much faster for me to put it up. Yeah. And that's been that's a big help. So
yeah, I'm gonna have to think about it over the winter, because a part of this makes you more productive. A part of this keeps things more orderly, which I want to be. A part of this kind of, there's some comfort in knowing I don't have shit all over the place, right? So I'm going to think about it this winter. I have a few different ideas, but any number of them could result in like sacrificing some space that I'm actually growing in. Not your raised beds, but maybe some of the spaces that I have where I have containers and things. And that's not, well, I mean, it is a sacrifice because I have some, you know, again, limited space when it comes to putting some things around, but I think it may end up being a better 2021 for me. So we'll see.
Well, 2021 has to be better than 2020. So.
Yeah, this is true. But again, the lesson in that is I knew this coming into the season that this is something I wanted to do. I didn't do it for a couple of different reasons. And I felt myself falling into old habits. So a workspace ultimately is going to be something I'm going to figure out. And it could be version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like it'll evolve along with my garden, but I do need to be able to dedicate a space because I don't get in and out of anything quickly. So yeah.
So for me, this one's kind of deep.
No.
Don't say that.
I did eat lunch before, so I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I realized a lesson learned for me was that the world is not as stable as we thought it was. And I need to be prepared for what, you know, referring to gardening, you know, we saw seed shortages last year. I couldn't get my sweet potato slips, all that. So I need to be a more self-reliant gardener moving forward. So that means saving seeds, thinking and planning a little bit farther in advance, just being prepared. So for a multitude of reasons, one, I don't have, because, right now it's like I'm looking at what seeds I have. I'm looking at what I want to grow next year, and I'm looking at what I can grow. And I'm thinking, well, when do I order my seeds? Is there going to be a mad rush like last year? Is there not? What's going to happen? Because it was a real issue last year.
Yeah.
There was a lot of times and places and people that couldn't get what they wanted to get.
Yeah.
So, thinking ahead in that manner. So it's like, I wanted to grow different varieties of stuff next year, but I have stuff that I can already grow. So it's kind of like, what should I do? Just kind of trying to deal with that. And being a more self-reliant gardener will do one of two, or do a bunch of things. But one, it'll take the stress off of me.
Yeah.
It would take the stress off of you because you wouldn't have to listen to me talk about it, Batavia. And the other thing is...
Oh, sorry. Okay.
And the other thing is it will leave the seeds for the people who don't do that stuff, for them to be able to start their gardens and grow. Yeah. Because my ultimate goal, if it could be a perfect world, I would have every single person in this entire world growing some kind of food for themselves. Not a whole garden, maybe just a little something, maybe a little pot or something, but... so that would kind of help eliminate that. And then I could share with other people, so like right now I've got my green beans and I've got my okra and I've got a pepper. And I said, you heard me right, a pepper and a couple of hot peppers that I'm letting stay out to go to seed so that I can attempt to save those. Yeah. So, I was out there filming a vlog today for it, and I was talking about it, and I was like, if I only get one seed this year to reproduce for next year, then it's a win. You know what I mean? And I don't think that it's going to be like hands down like a total issue, but I think the problem is these smaller seed companies cannot keep up with the demand. Yeah. It's not like they're not growing it. But you have people that are hoarding stuff, it's like, oh, I want to grow green beans. Let me buy 5 packs of green beans. And it's like, well, you don't really need 5 packs. Yeah. You know what I mean? So, that's that was a big lesson. I mean, that was an eye-opening experience this spring, man, when it was come time. Like, I didn't think that it would hit the gardening world the way it did. And you even look at, like, we were talking last week about canning supplies and all that stuff, and it's like, I can't make canning supplies, but I can manage it a little bit better. I can get better at other forms of preservation for longer food storage, stuff like that. Yeah. And, interestingly enough, I ordered like the vast majority of my seeds around the 29th of December, like right at the first of the year before everything, started to go into shit. And so I had, those seeds coming in. I bought a lot more seeds like at local stores, but, I experienced the same thing everyone else experienced when spring really came. Oh, I wanted to order this one thing and I didn't get it. I didn't find it in the store. Like, just... Sorry. I mean, people weren't even taking orders, let alone, taking them and saying that they weren't able to fill them. So, yeah, I think it's an exact point. It never occurred to me that as soon as it started happening when it came to things like seeds and not being able to keep up with that demand and then pushing, orders out, it still didn't click that people would go as far as saying, and we're going to start canning more, So I didn't make that connection at all. I definitely do have, I had canning supplies, like the jars and the lids and things, but not for the type of things that I planned on canning. Like I had a lot of like big jars, like your, quart size and your pint size, but I'm actually doing a little bit more small batch canning, so I've been on the hunt, for that material like all summer long. And I think that we have to like start thinking beyond that when it comes to this. Now I was going out and buying dirt, in April. I know you remember that, but again, I just didn't think about those other things. So we can't take what we experienced this year and just assume everything is going to be all gravy next year. So you got to, like you're saying, we were talking about this the other day. You got to start thinking about it. But I think this takes me into my next lesson learned. Well, hold on. So, and if you think about it too, like as we sit here right now and have this conversation, the second wave of this virus is firing up, as so it's been said.
Yeah.
So, we could very well be going into the same thing as last year or as earlier this year, moving right into it. So it is a hard thing to kind of manage and deal with, but just like, what do you have growing out on yours that you could save seeds from still? Anything?
Yeah.
And have you saved any seed?
I have saved seeds primarily on peppers because it's so easy to save those, and melons because you just know. Yeah. But I have some beans. Remember the yard long beans? The only beans that really grew. I have them on the vine where they're drying. I have some okra where it's getting to the point now where it's like 10 feet tall. And I'm just like, these are enough on the pot where I can just leave them. Because there's a couple of things. There's availability. There's expense, so, and then there's the quantity, even if they do sell it to you, so some of these veggies, you're getting so few seeds in the package even, so I do have some things that I am leaving on the plants to let them, go to seed, if you will.
And that's something we may see as well, is you will see more availability of seeds, but you will see less seeds at the same price. So that's something to think about too. Yeah. So, it's kind of, it's tough, but big lesson, life lesson. So go ahead.
No, definitely. And I think that it's, your timing is really good though, when it comes to that, kind of coming to that realization going into the next garden year.
No, my timing is piss poor. I should have thought about this beforehand, because the whole reason why I started to garden was for a situation where there was no food. That's why I originally was like, I'm going to start gardening, because if all of a sudden we can't get food, at least I could grow my own food. Yeah. And so to go from that, 15 years ago when I started my own personal journey to now, it's kind of pitiful that it took like a worldwide pandemic to be like, oh yeah, right, back to your roots, dumbass. You know what I mean? So in all reality, like, I have really bad timing. So
yeah. And in the grand scheme of things, I can't contest that. But excuse me, I think I was talking about we can have conversations around how to manage through that versus it being December, because there's a sweet spot. Like, I literally saw, again, we were talking about canning last week. I saw 2020 manufactured dates on some things in stores. Right. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if we're just getting the 2020 batch in to some of these stores or what.
So I looked it up, and they said they, some of the companies, and right now we are literally just talking about canning supplies and this exact moment, but the canning company said they are expecting more in November, December. So they're ramping up production. Yeah. But they had to go without producing for months. So that set them that far back. And then you think about the factory workers who obviously had to go in and work their ass off. So
yeah. So my next one, I think this is my second one. I'm trying to keep track. And this is, I think, if there is one of the greatest qualities of me, everyone that I really know and love will say, wait, who? You? No. I am very comfortable with coming to the conclusion that I was wrong about something, right? Like, it's just freeing, right? So I like to say it out loud. And so on that hand, but on the other hand, it's kind of like I had to go through this year to get to where I'm at. So I have been doing so much preserving, for me, going from like preserving maybe 5 jars of pickles last year and like 6 or 8 jars of like, candied jalapeno peppers to dozens and dozens of jars of things. Right. And so whatever, I didn't even have a schedule in mind, which is a whole different conversation, but growing things in the garden with specific ideas about them in mind, specific recipes in mind, right? So I am preserving more food than I'm actually eating fresh even now, right? Which makes sense because there's only so much I can keep up with when it comes to daily meals. But I look back and I say eggplants. Like, there is nothing that I'm going to do with as many eggplants as I had, and I look to say, believe it or not, the tomato plants worked out when it came to quantity, just not the type of tomatoes that I grew. Right.
Well, and you're canning them. So now they're not, you have a way to use them.
Yeah. But I look back and I say, like I have 2 green zebra tomato plants, and it was just an experiment. I like the tomato because you still want to be able to grow things you like. I only planted 2 of them because I wanted to see if one would do well in the front yard garden, unprotected, no squirrel cover. But I still have now 2 plants that are producing, and that's not a tomato that I will be preserving much. Right. So cherry tomatoes, another good example. Like, they're great because they're the first tomato that you get, but I think I had like 3 different cherry tomato plants. I could have at least just planted 1 more regular tomato plant because of, and what I've learned, and, a lot of, old canners, not old as an age, but a lot of people that have canned a lot, like something like tomatoes take a lot to produce. You need a lot of tomatoes to produce, right? I'm counting and it's like, wait, I need 3 jars for that recipe of sauce. Damn it, I got 4 jars. That's it. I'm tapped out. So anywho, while something like tomato sauce is pretty reasonably priced in the stores, there's a part of this whole process that I'm going through. Love to have a garden, love to grow food. Now let's use that food. So damn it, if I'm going to do it, why not have enough tomato sauce for me until next year this time, So I had to kind of admit that I'm wrong, and we'll talk about these seeds offline. There are a lot of things that I have that I like the idea of growing, and I still want to be able to grow things that are interesting, but there's also space that I'm going to need next year to focus on, no, this is the purpose I'm growing this particular thing. Like, I want to grow, 4 cucumbers plants because I want to pickle this many cucumbers, and that's it. I don't need 8, right? Right. So there are going to be some things that maybe I had intentions on growing that I won't grow because now I'm going through the whole preserving process, and I'm like, oh, well, that really didn't preserve well, So yeah, it's planting the garden with very specific things on how you're going to use it in mind.
Yeah, and that's welcome to the next level of gardening, Batavia. That's like one of the final levels for the garden. Is like when you think about it and you're like, this is what I want to eat, this is what I want to preserve, and this is how I'm going to grow it. Yeah. That's like, I feel like that's like one of the final levels that you get to when you think about it that way, and you really start planning out based on your diet. You know what I mean? Instead of being like, oh, I'm going to plant this fava bean because it's cool, but I have no idea how to eat it. Like, that's cool, but you're not really, you know what I mean? Yeah,
because what you're also doing is you're adding
not articulating my point
no.
well.
I mean, I think it's counterintuitive to your goal of gardening. Like, you're adding to waste. So not only you're using seeds that someone else could have used, right? You're using space that you could have used in a more productive way. And there's obviously time that you're giving to that fava bean plant, so I think that kind of transitioning from, years ago, like, oh, it's just cool to grow something, to, oh, I'm actually using, over the years, using more of the produce, to I want to scale up, but I still have the desire of, I'm like putting seeds in the ground and growing stuff. How cool is that? So that's what I got twined with over the last couple of years. Now it's like, okay, you're actually going beyond December. You're actually planning on doing things with this food where you can consume it in February, right? And so what do you really want in your cabinets? And that's even separate and apart from, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, right? Like, that's separate and apart from, if I look back and say, how much are you giving away? I mean, I've given away so little because I've been processing so much, right. Like, there's some things that I'm actually processing for, I'm preserving for the point of it will be gifts, but some of the stuff is,
and that's the thing too, is once you start, so the big thing is sharing your garden. And if you love to do that, once you start processing, there is less to share because now you see that there's a greater use for it. So there's 2 things. So
There's a different use. It doesn't necessarily mean it's greater because there is a gift in giving, right?
Yeah. I don't know. It may have come out wrong, but what I'm trying to say is, and here's your tip for the day.
Uh-oh, here we go.
If you want to preserve food in your garden, like let's say you want to preserve tomatoes, plant an extra tomato plant.
Yeah.
If you want to give away and preserve, then you need to plant one more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And to some people, and me, myself, it's important to give away some of the food. You know, I want people to experience that fresh food that you have not had an experience. You know, there's people that have never had a tomato that didn't come from the grocery store. And so in all reality, what that means is they've never had a tomato. Yeah. You know, or they've never had a vine ripened cantaloupe served to them fresh off the vine where it's still warm, kissed by the sun, and you bite into it and the juices run down your face and you know that heaven is the most beautiful place in the world because this is what you would be eating there. If I didn't paint that picture clear enough, then there is a problem.
I'm just trying to figure out where you have the cameras installed. From the juicy nectar dripping down to my elbow. You've captured it all. Yeah.
So I don't think you understand this, Batavia, but we are connected.
You know what? I absolutely do, but I'm always reminded about it at the most random times. Yeah. Yeah. But I do, you know, so going back to, so the lesson is, you know, plan the garden with what you plan on specifically doing with it. But there's also the impacts of, you know, this situation with this health crisis go beyond my little garden. But there has been an impact of it because there's just so little foot traffic here, you know? Yeah. So like the idea of, you know how many times I would have gone out with my girlfriends and I would have said, oh yeah, here's this and here's that, you know? And it sounds good to say, oh, hey, I'm going to stop by and pick up some fresh vegetables. But the reality is for a lot of people, they're closer to a grocery store than they are me, you know? Yeah. So, I think the best way I can give at this point when it comes to, you know, giving a part of the garden is through what I'm preserving, right? You know, so there's small batch, I have a whole book on small batch preserving. So I prepared for, you know, kind of the idea of I only want 3 jars of this thing. But there is also this idea of the work is done. And let's just be frank. Sometimes people want it done, meaning, you know, fresh vegetables, most times you still need to do something with them versus something that's been processed. I'm not giving away tomato sauce. You know, no one really, that's not a thing, you know.
Well, I mean, if you give away tomato sauce, it's like, yeah, it's good, but you have to, this is what I learned, is you have to have the recipe right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you can some shitty tomato sauce that tastes bad, it's going to taste bad. And I mean, look, I love tomato sauce that we can, but you know what? I like, what is it, ragu or whatever? I like that too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. So. Yeah. So I think that had I not gone through this garden year, and I'm still in the thick of preserving, and some of the stuff I haven't even tasted. Some of these are new recipes that I'm trying, right? You know,
yeah,
so
you just can them and eat them over the winter. You don't even know what it's going to taste like.
Exactly. So it's going to be interesting because first and foremost, if I'm going to process, if I'm putting the time to process it, even if it's putting it in a bag to freeze it, I want to make sure it's something that I am going to enjoy. So I'll have enough time. It's going to be cutting it close. I'll have enough time to try everything before I start planning my next year garden. There's some staples. Like I know if I have a garden, I'm going to have collard greens, right? Like that's going to happen, right? Especially now that I figured out how to not kill them, you know, when starting them from seed, or at least I think. Still haven't successfully started collards from seed, but anyway. Kale is going to be the sub in. If I can not kill that, I think I can not kill the rest. So there's some things that I'm not worried about, like in the spring garden, I'll be able to plant. I'm speaking the spring garden into existence. I'll be able to plant just fine without having to open up the fried green tomatoes that I pickled. Yeah, more on that later. Right. So
that doesn't sound very good.
Well, I think I mixed that up. It's kind of like pickled green tomatoes that maybe are going to be firm enough to fry later, but we'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's been interesting. It definitely has been I don't think it's going to take the fun out of it for me. And I may be able to give in different ways now. So when I sit down and go through my seed collection, hint to you.
Purple. Go ahead.
Okay. When I sit down and go through my seed collection, I thought, like, is that a safe word? Do we have a safe word on the show now?
No, this is not that kind of show, but
I'll be able to kind of sort through one, shelf life, right? We've talked about that a couple of times. Is it realistic that I'm going to grow this much of this thing in the next X years? And if not, perhaps find a different home for it, It's also super duper exciting because it's kind of like, they're not necessarily garden facts, but I really do feel like there is an evolution when it comes to my gardening, so there's something about doing the same thing over and over again that feels like work. And then there's everything else in life, and this is a part of everything else. So
lesson learned.
Yeah, lesson learned.
All right. So you remember the word I called out?
Yes.
So I called that word out because I was forgetting what my next lesson was, and I didn't have the hourglass flip. And I knew that you would remember it when I was preparing for it to go on. But
purple. Let's go.
You're sitting down, right?
I am.
Okay. Do you have a piece of rope?
Sure.
Okay. I need you to tie yourself into your chair. If you're driving down the road, I need you to put your seatbelt on, which you should have on anyways. If you're sitting at your desk, I need you to grip with your feet because this is gonna blow your mind. So when we first
what kind
started
of knot
this,
should I use with my string?
I would do a bowline or a clove hitch even if you had enough.
Yeah.
But either way.
Yeah, that clove hitch is normally my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let's go.
So do you remember when we were talking, this was months and months ago, but I was fairly adamant against odd colored vegetables that turned green when they cooked. Mm-hmm. You remember that, right?
I remember it vividly. Get it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm out in the garden last week maybe, and David and I are picking green beans. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, David, the rule is he gets the ones low, I get the ones high. So he's getting the ones low, and he's like, I don't see any, Daddy. And I'm like, well, there's one there. And he's like, oh, okay. And he's like, I can't see him. And I started thinking, I'm like, damn, this is a bitch sometimes. I can't see him either,
Mm-hmm.
And then I started thinking, I was like, what if I grew purple green beans? Then I'd be able to see them on the vine easier. Mm-hmm. Now it clicked after all these years because I had a flashback of when I had grown them before. And I remember that I could sit in my house on the second story and look down and be like, I need to go out and pick my green beans.
Yeah.
And it was so much easier. So my lesson learned is don't poo-poo the color of the vegetable, no matter what it turns out to be when it's growing. That is a very useful purpose.
Yeah, that's it's interesting. I was just doing a walkthrough for the garden. I was looking at jalapeno peppers, and I let a lot of those go red. Mm-hmm. And it's red. It's a stoplight. So I stop and I'll say, okay, I need to come back and pick those. Now I've picked every red pepper. Everything's green. And I got to really dig in there to try to figure out, all right, what's, of size, what's really ready to be picked, because it's just a wall of green, a sea of green. And so it's actually a great tip, a great hack, if you will. And they're going to get to the place you want them to be anyway. They're going to get back to green anyway. And beans are one of those things where, man, you got to stay on it. Dude,
you got to pick them every day.
They are close to being as bad as okra when it comes to if they become productive.
Look, I love okra, but okra's annoying as shit.
I said close, yeah.
Because you don't have, like, okra, you have no leeway on.
Yeah.
Like, you miss it by a day.
It's
done. You can almost miss it by an hour, and it's done. Green beans, you can get one that's a little overripened. You can do it. It'd be a little stringy.
And the unfortunate thing about green okra is you have to let it go to seed on the vine, and it takes a long time for that thing to completely dry out where, you could let a couple of beans stay there and keep on rocking and pick the rest of them if you want to, like, save those for seed, so. So yeah.
Or if it's not fully mature when you're out picking, you can still leave a green bean. Mm-hmm. But an okra, you really should not leave it, you know, because the next day it could very well be over ripened. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, that's actually. I know
that's a shocker for you based on what my stance has been in the past.
So the Clock and Rock knot.
Clove hitch.
Yeah, I'll take that out now. That was an errant ring of the bell. So that's pretty good. Yeah, I may have some purple. I'm gonna look. I may have some purple beans.
So that's something that I was looking for the other day was purple pole beans to find, and there are none.
Oh,
anywhere.
You know what? I think I have purple bush beans.
Yes, purple bush beans.
Wait, do you want bush beans or you want pole beans?
I grow bush beans every year to kind of kick off the year, and then I just kind of transition over to my pole beans nice and quietly.
Yeah.
And generally, I go back to bush beans at the end of the year to get another quick harvest, but I did not find any more bush bean seeds this year, and I wasn't going to order like a pack of bush beans.
Yeah. No.
You know what I mean? It's just not worth it. So, you know, but my bush beans, because I tried something new this year, were more productive than my pole beans.
Interesting.
So,
now, make a note for yourself. At least my experience has been, as soon as seeds get out in the store, look for them, because I don't know if I've ever ordered, and I've only been ordering seeds for the last couple of years, but I don't know if I've ever ordered beans online. I've always picked them up in the store.
Have to.
Yeah, I've generally picked them up in the store. So I know, we're going into a whole different kind of year next year, but as soon as things are out, start looking around for them if you haven't gotten them yet.
Well, and you know, if you're going to save seeds, you have to grow heirlooms. Mm-hmm. So,
for beans in particular?
Have to. Everything. If you want it to stay true, you need to get heirlooms.
That's your best chance. And that's a struggle that I've had, because we've talked about how few heirloom seeds I've purchased. Even for the melons, I'm like, well, and that's a hard thing to kind of wait and see what you're going to get for. Like, you know, you plant the melon seed that you saved. But at this stage, if you have no seeds or non-heirloom seeds that you've saved, because I also think about how many people, like, what's your neighbor, take something out of her mouth and plant the seed. She's getting food. So,
well, and you know, honestly, like if I buy, you know, let's say a Better Boy tomato, I don't even know if it's heirloom or not, but I save it and it reverts back to a Cherokee tomato or, you know, something, like, I don't give a shit. I still got a tomato. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the end of the world, but kind of, you know, but I guess the fear is that some of the non-heirloom varieties seeds will not be viable.
Now, I don't know if I've heard of that, but I don't know enough about seeds in general to say one way or another.
Yeah, I don't know if that's completely true either. I just know that is a fear that I have read about. So, but you know what? It's time for Batavia to give us the recipe of the day. This episode is proudly brought to you by San Diego Seed Company, a company that is dedicated to providing organic heirloom varieties of seeds for your small urban farm. That's right, you heard me. You are a small urban farmer. You provide food for your family and share with your neighbors, and they are dedicated to providing you with the best seeds for a bountiful harvest. Check them out at SanDiegoSeedCompany.com or on social media at, you guessed it, San Diego Seed Company.
All right. So I am going to tell you, because I want to be transparent, that this recipe accompanied peaches. And since at this time of year, we're kind of out of peach season, I'm going to suggest that you use apples instead for this. So this is a rum sauce that I preserved, but I also used a hack. So I used a rum sauce with peaches, canned it. It's sitting on a shelf somewhere. But because my measurements aren't exactly accurate, not exact at this point, I had some left over. I put it in the refrigerator and baked some peaches and topped it with the rum sauce. So I'm going to give you the rum sauce recipe and suggest that you use apples with it. So I had to pare this down like half of half to make it something reasonable for normal people to eat. If you're interested, send us an inbox at the Backyard Gardens Pod, and I'll tell you the specific measurements from it. But 4 ingredients for the sauce. Yeah, pretty simple. Brown sugar, regular kind of granulated white sugar, rum, and a little bit of lemon zest. So half a cup of brown sugar, half a cup of white sugar, 3 tablespoons of rum. I know it seems kind of light, but that's what it is. Oh, but it's also supposed to be a light rum. And then about a 4th teaspoon of lemon zest. Put it in a pot, like a regular boiling pot, and bring everything up, stir it up good, bring everything up to a boil. You really want all of those sugars to dissolve. And once you do that, you could add your apples, cutting your apples, leaving the skin on. I do it in slices. You can take the skin off of the apples. That's fine too. You can add the fruit. You could even do this with pears potentially. You could add the fruit into the boiling pot. But what I did was just basically let everything boil up, creating the sauce once it's dissolved. I'd say let it simmer for about 20 minutes after you've brought it up to a boil. Then you're going to get that nice gooey brown liquid because remember you had that brown sugar. Take your apples in this case, and I'd use maybe 2 or 3 apples. Cut those up into slices, put it into a casserole dish, a pie dish, anything that you would bake in. Drizzle the rum sauce on top of the apples. Again, these are raw apples. Slide it into the oven. Bake it at about 350 until the apples are soft. Maybe 25, 30 minutes. I was doing something else while I was cooking the peaches. And my favorite, scoop it all up into a bowl, top it with some ice cream. It's golden, baby. There's nothing that's low fat or low sugar about this, but it is good.
So how dare you, first of all?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you? I know what's going on.
Well,
I know what you're doing.
Well,
you're slick. You're slick.
It could be that I'm having your back. It could be that that's what's happening here.
Batavia has become scandalous.
That's almost a throwback now. I love it.
It is a throwback. It will stay in the show forever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that sounds delicious. So there is ways to make it low sugar though.
Yeah, you could
You
obviously
just have to experiment.
Yeah, you could obviously use generally just less sugar. You could pull in you could use more rum. No, you could add some water. You could use maple syrup, so there's still sugar content, but not just your regular table sugar. There's something about the gooiness with brown sugar though, that's important. So,
Well, because the fruit has sugar in it.
yeah. I mean, and when you top it with ice cream, I'm talking about like, I ended up having it for dinner because I'd already blown my calorie count for the day. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's good stuff. It is. And so that also is, if you're actually going to go with the canning recipe, the recipe I used was from Ball's Fresh Preserving site. That's like the true recipe with the actual sizes to can a few pints of it.
So you know how I said that the fruit has sugar in it? Mm-hmm. Before we get back to our subject, I just got to, and you were saying how like, not that you hate people like me that do what I do when we speak, but it annoys you. Mm-hmm. But you still love it. But that's okay.
Yeah. I still love you. I still love people that do that, but not the it that they do.
So the last month, we took a break from sugar in my family. Mm-hmm. And at this time of year, we tend to do that because Halloween comes.
Yeah.
And it's I got a 6-year-old. We go trick or treating, so it's like. It's a massive blowout. Mm-hmm. So we usually try to go like 3 weeks without sugar. And I was saying like we were having some birthday cake and I was like, man, I haven't had sugar in a month. And my cousin was there and he's like, so you haven't been eating fruit? And I was like, damn it.
I love him. He's one of you. He's one of your kind.
Like, no, because I'm like, no, it's different. He's like, it's sugar. I'm like, no, it's different. No. And, he kept going back and forth. And I was like, the sugar in the fruit is processed by your body differently. And it is natural sugar. It is not artificial. It is not concentrated. It doesn't hit your bloodstream immediately. I had to break it all down.
But you too, I mean, it's the same version that, like, it's the same guy. Yeah. Normally it's one, you and then me, right? But it's like the two of you all are going to battle. It's a sight to see, I imagine. And
it's like when when we went vegan, and they were like, people were like, "So you don't eat cheese?" Like, no. Did you drink milk? Well, no. Well, we drink almond milk. Well, that's milk.
Yeah.
Okay. Here we go. It's so. Anyways, pet peeve.
Yeah, but it actually is a big segue back to, I'm going to go to my next lesson learned, but back to the planning the garden with the specific recipes in mind. So while I had my whole...
you can't go back to that.
I can do anything I want to do.
Damn it.
I can.
You don't have to shake your head on me.
Yeah, I can. And I pointed my finger, right?
You did.
I could sub in a new lesson learned, but I'm not going to. I'm going back. So I had recipes for preserving, like, earmarked in my books that I was going to make this year, kind of leading into it. I wanted to make it. So I did a little bit of lesson 2. And it was if I have enough of this particular vegetable, then I'll make it. But when it came to some of these things that I'm trying now, the amount of sugar in these recipes, and I'm just like jelly of any kind, good Lord, So again,
Pink box pectin.
What's that?
Pink box pectin.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah,
low sugar.
Yeah,
that's what we use.
Yeah. So I have added that to my list of kind of, because I like sweet treats. I have a local bakery that I go to once a week, but I love the idea of this winter I can go to my cabinet and pull some things off, because I didn't grow them, but I've been canning some peaches. I have some pears downstairs that I'm going to can. So yeah, it's something to consider.
What's your favorite kind of sweet treat?
Oh, it's plain. It's just ice cream. If I had to choose one sweet treat forever and ever, it would just be ice cream. It never fails me. Yeah,
I'm a cookies and cake kind of guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've always had a love for ice cream. Always, anytime can eat it. I have been doing much more, cupcakes and things as of late. There is a potato chip cookie at my local bakery that, it's like a butter cookie, but it literally has potato chips in it.
Well, we have a listener that I was talking to the other day, actually, and just so you know, we are expecting boxes of cookies. You know who you are, so
I also would like to say, don't take my ice cream being a favorite and don't think that I don't enjoy every cookie I've ever eaten. All right. Well, I'm excited now. Yeah, we have sweet treats coming.
We might.
Yeah. All right. No pressure. Total pressure. So my next one is succession sowing. I just made that up. So succession planting is a thing.
Same thing.
Yeah. Same concept, same purpose. But completely my idea. I submitted the patent request. And
it got turned down, but carry on.
Yeah, all right. Completely rejected. Like, we're not even going to read this. We're rejecting it based on the subject line alone. So when Ben convinced me, twisting my arm earlier this summer, to start seeds indoors in the middle of summer, and I did it, and it really paid off. Those are the only fall veggies that I have growing. Did I tell you that? Yeah. Isn't that something? Literally, I would have no fall. Damn it. I would have no fall garden if not for that. Oh, good night. Anyway.
She's tearing up, people. She's tearing up.
Yeah. So, but what it also taught me was some of the whole thing with the, no spring garden this year, and my summer garden is still kicking butt, right? I still have in October summer vegetables, and that's really because I took great care of everything. No, but it's also because I planted most of my garden at the beginning of June, right? So these vegetables really are still running their course, right? And that was in part, everything got to the same point of it needing to be planted at the same time. So if I go back all the way to the grow room back in March, I did plant things in March. I planted things in April, but only because these things needed 4 weeks versus these things needing 8 weeks. I didn't continue to plant. Like as soon as I got to the point of hardening stuff off and planting outside, preparing to plant outside, like I literally shut the lights off in the grow room. So I realized that I literally, for me, need a schedule. I need to make sure that I'm continuing to sow seeds. And damn it, if you aren't right about, it's going to be more beneficial for me to sow things indoors. There's no reason why I shouldn't have been starting to grow something in June, so yeah, that's going to be
in all reality. And I mean, I hate to say it, you should be running that thing, your grow room, almost all year with like a couple month break. And that's painful to think about.
Yeah, it is. It is. But you know what? It could be the gift that I didn't realize I needed too, because, I mean, outside of the couple of, I found myself unconscious, laying in a pile of dirt, once or twice. That rum sauce, outside of those couple of mishaps, I really enjoyed the process, right? There's a whole different thing when it comes to, is it sad? Like when it comes to weather changing, and time of year and just emotionally how some of us react to it. This could be the thing that I didn't realize I needed, Sowing seeds in December.
Yeah. Well,
maybe not
actually,
December.
Yes, there are some seeds that you could sow in your area in January. So it makes all the difference, man.
Yeah.
It really does. And I mean, the same for my fall garden. Like most of what I have that's going well was seedling that I started, so I mean, I have a rack of Brussels sprouts that we're getting super close on.
So
I don't know what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
But they were all started from seed and they're doing great. Inside.
Yeah.
So anything I planted outside, because it's so the change is so different. I mean, I honestly think the best way to go if you're going to sow outside is just dump seeds out in the garden and see what comes up. You know what I mean? Because it's hard. It's really hard to direct sow. So I think that's a good one. And you actually stole mine.
Did I? I was just going to say that I think that's 6 altogether, 3 for you, 3 for me. So are you going to do my patent idea with succession sowing?
Oh, inside? So, yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, I'm going to expand my grow shelf and try and make it a little bit so I can have more on there. And yeah, I'm going to have to, because, after I did it this year, I was like, yeah, I should have. And it's the same thing. I did this in the fall in July. Once I took things out, I turned the light off and walked away.
Yeah.
And what I really should have been doing is I should have kept going. Maybe not as intense, but just keep something going for the simple fact too, because, and this is why the fall is a little bit more difficult for me, because we stay, 90s, 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 80s, 80s. And then all of a sudden it'll get down to where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But we're only 3 weeks away or something, a month from our frost date, which in all reality, like when I lived up in Massachusetts, when the first day of fall happened, you were done with the hot weather, and when's the first day of fall? September
20-something?
21st, maybe?
22nd or something like that, yep.
On the 22nd, it's just straight up fall. But here it's like summer, so it's a little bit harder here. And I should have kept things going because as I put stuff out and it burns, I would have something else to go in its place. Yeah. And the problem is hardening off is the whole issue is hardening stuff off.
Yeah. You know what though? I didn't realize it until now because again, this is the first year I've done that, is hardening off wasn't that hard for me because my temperature, my weather is just the exact opposite. By the time it was ready for me to come out, the weather was like, there was maybe a hot day, but those temperatures were dipping down into the 70s, 60s even at the beginning. I actually transplanted things like around September the 11th. So I probably started bringing them out like at the beginning of September. And we were already like, I wasn't wearing socks because that's not how I roll. But, I was already in a layer or two, so yeah, you kind of have to use your climate to benefit you. I may actually, if I can get on the bandwagon of starting things indoors, my fall garden may be more successful than I thought it would be. So if I had started even my kale plants are a great example, and we know that they're hardy, they're hardy. I actually started those and killed a couple of rounds of them, and it ended up starting them like in August. If the ones I started in July lived, they would be a really good size now. They're still completely edible now, Right. So I'll take that into next year as well. But I'm really even talking about like the summer months, because it's a lot of pressure too for me to get everything out into the garden, on June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd. So, but if I'm planning this a little bit more thoughtfully, it's okay, I think, in my world to start cucumbers on June 15th. Remember with the whole thing, I know that you had bad luck with cucumbers this year, but with my cucumbers, they all came in basically at the same time. They were all started at the same time, and then they all basically died at the same time, and I got more than I could ever use anyway, so definitely some lessons around timing, if you will. So yeah.
You're just gonna end it like that?
Oh, always. Mm-hmm. I got all wrapped up and got excited about, and then I was like, I don't have any more words for it.
Yeah, so. It's like I'm looking at my weather now, and right now we're in the upper 70s every day, in the upper 60s every night to set lower 70s. Mm-hmm. So technically it's fall, but that's not really fall weather. No. Those nights are too warm for some of these plants. They got to cool off. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. I think in all reality, the way it works for me, and I do it every year, I have the same issue, is spring is a great time for me because I can get started early, and my springs are generally pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But then my fall, it seems to me like my best bet is to plant stuff like, I'm still saying Brussels sprouts because they can take a heat.
Yeah. Okay.
Parsnips, maybe some carrots, but see, it's so hot, you can't really get them to germinate. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then, try and squeeze in quick rounds of like bush beans or maybe a squash or something if I could ever get the vine borers under control. Don't even know what to do about that. But, I think that's almost a better use of my time, and to go back and then start it again, because and a lot of the problem is actually my yard, the amount of sunlight that comes in. So right now, because the trees haven't even turned colors here yet.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So they're just starting to, how at the end of summer trees will start to look ratty, but they won't turn colors. That's where we are. So when the leaves fall, I will get more sunlight. But right now, I'm not getting a lot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the other part. Now, if I went out and went ham and just started cutting down trees, that would be different. But I'm not going to cut down 100-foot tree. So
yeah. Well,
I would like to cut down a couple, but
and I've told you I don't have any trees on my property at all.
Right.
And even like the neighbors on either sides of me don't have trees. So there's like a couple of houses down there, trees and all.
But you have houses that create shade.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the reason why the swear word front yard garden has been such a blessing, because it's not obstructed. You don't have the houses on either side of it. You don't have the garages. You don't have any of that. So yeah, I think that this year has been so interesting because it has really helped. I think we're getting into the next week's episode, which I basically told you not to get into, but it's helping me formulate how I want to garden.
Right.
Oh, that's
so what
golden.
is next week's episode?
Next week's episode is wins and losses, because lessons learned are different than wins and losses. I haven't been able to celebrate the way I wanted to celebrate in this episode. There's going to be some happy dancing. Well, and a little bit of more crying because,
Yeah. Yeah. When you start to think about it, the losses will overcome the wins sometimes, but that's okay. That's, it's natural. But, it's, fall is it's a tough one for me.
Yeah, in my mind, because I am hopeful about this part of my life, about gardening, I'm a glass half full kind of gal. I won't get into the rest of my life and my, the way I look at things, because that's not what this show is about. But I say that to say, I think spring may be my time. I kind of have a feeling. The reason why I was kind of like, with fall, remember I was in a couple of episodes ago, I'm like, it's just hard. It's hard getting the timing right. This is one more year of not really getting it right with direct sowing and all. I feel like I'm like fighting the whole spirit of fighting it against the frost for what's left in the summer garden. But in my mind, spring, while I will have socks on by then, I'm thinking that may be an opportunity for me to grow some of the things that I struggle with growing in my summer garden. Like I didn't get one head of cabbage this year. And since I killed most things, this summer growing them indoors, I didn't get a chance to try to plant them for my fall garden. So I'm actually looking forward to it. And we'll talk about this episodes from now. But I have a couple of ideas about how I think I'm just going to get some of those veggies just in spring and be done with it and move on. So we'll see.
You mean like go buy seedlings?
No, I mean like, starting like planting cabbage as a part of my spring garden versus I planted cabbage last year, was successful in the midst of summer, like in June, and got heads of cabbage. This year I bought transplants for cabbage, but my collards, because they're huge and they're bullies, overshadowed them. So I ended up pulling all of my cabbage out. And I didn't have any cabbage in the garden at all. So I'm thinking that the timing, because it's a cool weather crop, as an example, cabbage may perform better for me in the spring versus trying to battle with it. And don't even get me started about the cabbage moth, which I saw a day ago, still flying around in October. Bastard.
Yeah. So the question on everybody's mind that's listening, are you going to start a garden earlier next year?
I don't know. I want to like really in this episode, we're going to open this up at this point in this episode.
Yeah, this is as you like to talk about progression. This is going to be a progression of Batavia's thoughts. Haven't
I made enough progress in my thoughts? Do you want more from me?
That's my job, Batavia, is to push you. Have you not
I actually was
that?
looking at my list of lessons learned and saying I want to see how many have been influenced heavily by you. And the secession one is really, that's a huge one. Don't just stop planting. But I want to, and there are two reasons why I pause with saying yes. It's the getting over the hump of just doing it, how I have to have some things ordered in a certain way. I'm experiencing that now, right? And then the two is the idea of the risk, because while I wanted to start earlier this year, let's call it June 1st. Let's pretend that's when I planted. The weather was still cold as you know what in May, so the question is, would I have done harm to those vegetables, those transplants? I don't know.
Well, they say plant the seed as soon as the soil can be worked.
Yeah, but I stopped listening to they back in 2017. Yep. Never since then, never again.
And now you just listen to me?
Never. No, we'll see.
Because I'm going to start my garden earlier.
So I think in my mind, starting in your summer garden earlier.
Just in general, okay. Like my spring garden and stuff, I'm going to start. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to start earlier, I'm not asking if you're going to start tomatoes any earlier.
Oh, okay.
But your cold hardy stuff, are you going to start? Because you usually put everything out at once.
Yeah. Yep. Because I only grow for one kind of period of time. Right. So the direct answer is, if we're not just talking about like tomatoes and summer loving veggies, then yes, because I have to plant one thing, if nothing else, one plant for the spring.
So, see, you're having linear thinking when it comes to this. When we're talking about planting, you're hung up on the tomato and the pepper. And that's not what I'm referring to. Like planting is planting like, lettuce.
Yeah, but I'd already talked about my spring garden is going to be my time to shine. So I'd already talked about that.
Hey, look, you're
trying to put a fine point on it?
Clarification.
No. You're trying to mark a point in the episode where we can go back and say, but you promised.
Yeah, but the problem is I don't go back and listen to the episode.
This is true.
You can bury that information easily.
So yes, I do plan on starting my garden earlier. I plan on starting my seeds earlier as well. So yeah. Yeah,
I mean, it's like I've told you, I guess I'm going to start planting some seeds in January. So in all reality, and especially now with the greenhouse, I might not ever get a break from garden, really. I think in December and January, the greenhouse will stay alive, but it won't grow, if you know what I'm saying. So I think there will be a lull time. But as far as like starting seeds and stuff, like there are seeds that I will be starting in January. Yeah. For sure going to start. So
I think what it'll end up being for me is because I'll still be working with food through October, early part of November. I think I'm going to spend some more time in November doing some more planning while it's still so fresh. And my hope is to take, outside of, what we're doing, as a part of Backyard Gardens, taking December off, if you will, and then I can hit the ground running. Because I didn't start seeds last year until March. So January is a big difference from March.
I think when I lived in Massachusetts, there are some seeds that I started on Valentine's Day. Some seeds that I started on Valentine's Day. Because, it's a progression. You start with a couple and then, it grows and grows and grows. And then like the last like inside sowing is just like massive. Because you need to do like all your cool weather stuff like all at once. Yeah. So
I do have to do some research though about,
Now you're not taking a break off of Backyard Gardens.
No, of course not.
In December, because we can't have that.
We have some hot episodes coming out then too.
Hot. Don't
touch it. It's hot. That's crazy. I'm watching my okra plants. Remember the 10 foot tall plants? Like almost bend over with this wind. Chicago,
so in the video I just filmed today, it should come out next week or something, maybe the week after. I cut down my okra plant. It was 10 feet tall. It was overshadowing my garden. Yeah. And it caused issues, so I had to cut it down. And it's always a sad moment. I mean, they get so big. Yeah. And I thought about as a joke, like breaking out the chainsaw and be like, I'm going to cut down my okra, but I decided not to.
Yeah, you're going to need a forklift to dig those roots out.
Yeah, I'm just going to leave them there. Cut them. I mean, they'll die in the wintertime. Yeah. But I had an okra blow over completely sideways, didn't snap, and then it still grew for another 2 months, and it would just grow. As it laid out in the yard, it would just continue growing up. And then I was able to get okra at eye level.
Yeah.
Because, it's to the point now where, like, I can't even reach it.
It's a gift of a plant. Like, I'm at this point standing on a milk crate to get the plant to bend towards me. Yeah. To, cut a okra pod off and hope that I could catch it with the other hand, right? It's some acrobats for real.
Yeah, that's how I am, so I get it. But it sounds like you learned some good lessons.
I did. I went back to my 2019 lessons learned to see did I actually, because I documented that. It's on my YouTube channel, to say, damn it, is it the same lessons? And I did better by those things. I did 3 lessons learned last year too. And here it is. The garden's always teaching you. Yeah. So 3 brand new lessons. Never stop learning,
man. And you know what though? And on a closing note, I think that, I've always said that there's no such thing as an expert gardener. And if you look at, like we're talking about fall gardening, you literally get 1 chance a year to get it right. And if you don't get it right, you have to wait a whole nother year to do it again. And I think you can never really be an expert gardener. You know what I mean? Because you just don't have that opportunity. If you had a tomato plant that died in August and you could replant in August and then, just keep doing it all year round. Yeah, for sure. And there's probably places where that is the case, but I think generally speaking, I don't think it's possible because it's a limited time every year.
Yeah, don't put all of your eggs in the tomato plant basket. Terrible.
Yeah.
I know. Horrible.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to not edit that out, but wish we did.
There are moments where I'm really clever. That ain't one of them.
Have you got anything to tell the good people?
Hold off on putting on socks as long as you can.
Damn. Solid advice. Solid.
Dropping it, baby. Dropping it.
Solid. Well, some closing housekeeping items. Wink, wink. Backyard Gardens YouTube is firing back up. We took a break. I'm doing vlogs and greenhouse stuff. Batavia is going to be providing videos off and on. And we are also going to have guests providing videos on to help you with your garden. So check us out on YouTube at Simply Backyard Gardens. If you have any questions, hit us up on Backyard Gardens Pod. And until next time, we'll continue to learn. Yeah. And we're going to take notes so we can learn even more.
Yeah. Oh.
So give us a like and subscribe and share us with your friends.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to us today. If you want to follow us on Instagram, you can find us at Backyard Gardens Pod, and we share gardening tips and clips from the show, and we would love to see your gardens and share them with everybody. So if you want to join us and you want to share your gardens, feel free to use the hashtag BYG Podcast. And if you want to see us on video, you can find us on YouTube at Backyard Gardens, where we have the full show and clips and all the recipes broken down for you. And until next time, learn to grow and grow for change, and we're going to call it a wrap.
Now you know why people feel like celebrating at harvest time.
All over the world, people have feasting and good times when the crops have been gathered in.